Szymański.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kacper Szymański, and today I will talk about Switzerland, probably the best country in Europe. But I would speak about Switzerland during World War II, because most people, when asked about Switzerland during the World War II, they think that nothing happened there. They were neutral, and they were living a happy life. But it's not true. A lot happened in Switzerland. But before I speak about the Switzerland during World War II, we have to answer the question, what is Switzerland? As you can see, Switzerland is a country. It contains 26 autonomous cantons that are quite different from each other. But that's not the only interesting part about Switzerland, because there are, I marked a few important cities in Switzerland. As you can see, Zurich, which is basically the capital of business in Switzerland. Basel, which is at the border between Switzerland, France, and Germany. Bern, where the parliament is, and Geneva, where a lot of international companies have their headquarters there. But also, Switzerland has 4 official languages. As you can see, the most part is speaking German, marked as red color. Then we have French, marked as purple, Italian marked as green, and a language called Romansh, marked as yellow. Romansh is a very interesting language because it's a mix of Latin, Italian, and German. So I described really short what Switzerland is. So we move on to the first one of the most important aspects about Swiss during the World War II, which is the Swiss militarism. In Switzerland, there is and there was a mandatory military service for every man after the turn 18. And after the military training, the Swiss soldiers had to keep their weapon, the gun, and ammunition at home, so they could be mobilized quickly. For example, in 48 hours. And there's also the riflery tradition. Since the Middle Ages, Swiss mercenaries were hired by different European lords. For example, French lords or Italian lords, and they fought for them. And they were really good warriors. But shortly after, it was forbidden, and Swiss citizens could no longer be hired as mercenaries. But there is one group still to this day that is a mercenary group that contains Swiss citizens, and is called Swiss Guard. And basically they protect the Pope. So, moving on, Switzerland and Swiss army officers had to come up with a plan in order to prepare for eventual invasion of a neighboring country. And like most of European nations, shortly before the outbreak of the Second World War, they have mobilized their troops. And they have mobilized around 400,000 of them. And like I said, they had to come up with a plan. And their plan was called the Swiss National Redoubt plan. As you can see, their plan was basically to locate some troops at the border to defend against the potential invader, delay their advance, and then retreat to the more suitable positions for defense in the Alps. But what was the real threat? They were called Germans, and they've come up with a few plans to invade Switzerland. Here you can see the plan called Operation Tannenbaum, which means Christmas tree. And as you can see, they've planned to attack from the north and the west with potential help from Italians from the south. And now I have to talk about the person, the one person that is a symbol of Swiss unity and was a leader, basically, of Swiss and Switzerland in that time. And his name was General Henri Guizot, and he was elected shortly before the outbreak of the Second World War by the Federal Assembly. And he held a speech on the historic place for Switzerland called Rutli, and he gathered the Swiss officers and held a speech. I decide to reunite you in this historic place, the symbolic ground for our independence, to explain the urgency of the situation and to speak of you as a soldier to soldiers. We are at the turning point of our history. The survival of Switzerland is at stake. And at stake it was. And although the invasion of Switzerland didn't happen, the Swiss pilots and Swiss air defense had a lot to do because other countries thought that it would be a great idea to cross the Swiss airspace because it would be shorter to reach the destination and so on. So what Swiss did? They've basically shot them down, they basically shot them down, and I've chosen two of the most used Swiss fighter planes in which they did so. On your right, you can see the Messerschmitt Bf 109, which was the most advanced fighter plane at the time of the outbreak of the Second World War. And mostly Swiss pilots used them against the Germans themselves, which the Germans were furious about. And the other plane is a license-produced plane from France, which was called D3800 and D3801. It wasn't as advanced as the Bf 109, but it was used widely by the Swiss pilots. And in terms of speaking of the phases of the Swiss violations of the Swiss airspace, first were the Germans. When Germany attacked France in 1940, the most used bomber by the Germans was the Heinkel 111, and a lot of them had been shot down by the Swiss pilots. And after some time, Germans thought that it's not fair that Swiss pilots shot down their planes on the Swiss territory, basically. So they thought that they would use their own fighters against the Swiss fighters. And it turned out not well for them because they have lost more fighters than Switzerland. And then the Allies came and used the Swiss airspace to either evacuate from the German airspace after they were shot and their planes were damaged, or to shorten the distance between the destination of the bombing raid. And most of the bombers were, as you can see, the B-17 Flying Fortress and the B-24 Liberator. And during the time of the war, a lot of them has landed in on the Swiss territory or crashed on the Swiss soil. And accidentally, when they were either evacuating or they were flying towards the target of the bombing, they've sometimes accidentally released their bombs and bombed Swiss cities. And there were a few incidents. As you can see on the map, I marked them with red dots. And the most notable ones were Schaffhausen, Stein am Rhein, Zurich, and Basel. So, Switzerland had to prepare for the potential invasion. They had to mobilize the troops, even used the food carts because there were shortages of food then. But they have prepared well, and the invasion didn't happen. So it means they have prepared. They've been prepared. So as you can see, a lot happened, and a lot of foreign soldiers were interned in Switzerland during the war because they were fleeing, seeking refuge in Switzerland. As you can see, the most number of them were French, Italians, and Polish soldiers. And as I say that, I would like to thank you for the listening, and I hope you liked my presentation.
Thank you so much. Discussion. So, my first question is, was the entire military elite, Swiss military elite, in agreement about with neutrality? Was it a long time tradition of Switzerland, or it was something new in this time?
So the Swiss neutrality was a long tradition, and I think the military elite of Switzerland, they all agreed that they should remain neutral in the time of crisis, as you could hear the war going around them. They have remained neutral, and there wasn't any disagreements about that. But they were minor disagreements about the potential plans to remain neutral and this stuff.
Someone else? Okay.
Can
Who
I?
was the first?
I was not allowed. So, due to a lot of German-speaking people in Switzerland, there was a place for ideology propaganda fights, like ideology preparation, how to not to be part of the German anti-propaganda back in the days.
There was a propaganda because German-speaking part of Switzerland and also other parts, they didn't want, especially the German-speaking part, they didn't want to be the part of Germany because they thought they are different from the Germans, because they're a part of this tradition, this culture of Swiss unity, and the cantons that they were together in Switzerland.
Thank you. Next
Yes,
one.
so why Hitler didn't decide to attack Switzerland? I mean, they were like a big part of people who don't speak German, and in his he told that he wanted to connect every German-speaking people. So why they don't attack them?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think personally, the time was against Germany because after they attacked France, then they fight with England, the Battle of England, and then they have attacked Soviet Union, so they didn't have time for that, and they knew that the potential invasion of Switzerland would cost them more than they wouldn't gain as much as they would lose.
Someone else? Yes?
So, how did Swiss people get into possession of German planes? I mean, why were the Germans willing to sell them to Swiss people? Wouldn't it be more strategically appealing not to do that, so the Switzerland is more, easy to target?
I think Germany at that time needed money basically, to run their economy because they were preparing for a big war. So they needed money, and they thought that Switzerland was not a threat to them. So it would be good to send them some planes to earn some money. Basically, pragmatic things here.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
Yeah, but probably not a question, but rather a commentary, because I'm not sure if you heard about Hans von Dach, who's the most famous Swiss military theorist. He was working in 57, something like that, in those years, for education department in the Swiss defense ministry, and he is creator of like famous series of books called Total Resistance. Those books were quite popular, especially in Ukraine in 2014, before the 2014 first Russian invasion, because it's guerrilla tactics and how you can actually survive and resist during the occupation. So definitely Swiss experience is quite exceptional, and if you want to probably know more about this Swiss, experience incorporated in those books, I highly recommend you those.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last one. You have some question, yeah?
Yeah. So did allies during Second World War, are they making any other attacks from Switzerland? I mean, you say that they kept some of their soldiers, France or Poland or whatever. So have any of allies tried to attack, for instance, Germany by ground from Switzerland, or Switzerland borders always kept neutral, meaning like that other troops haven't been affected?
So
Switzerland ground.
Like says, Switzerland wasn't invaded by the other countries, but of course, I think Germany has sent a lot of agents, I would say, a lot of people that would sabotage the Swiss industry, for example, or Swiss bases. But luckily, Swiss soldiers were capturing them really fast, so they couldn't do anything. As for the allies, of course, in Switzerland during the war, there were a lot of agents from different countries, and they were gathering information about, as we speak of allies, against Germany, a lot of information. So they, because nearly every country in continental Europe back then was controlled by Germany. So Switzerland was basically an island in Europe where the foreign agents could gather information about them.
Okay, thank you so much.